In this episode, Mike and Lori sit down and share with us their over 25-year successful experience in real estate investing, event venue ownership, owning a winery, doing things traditionally, financially over the last 25 years, and then discovering the infinite banking concept. We had a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy listening. Thank you. Welcome to the Banking with Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery, and I'm always excited when guests come into the studio in person, live, because it's just a little better, in my opinion, than a Zoom meeting. And I'm excited today because Mike and Lori Diefenbach are here from North Carolina, and they're salt of the earth people. I can't wait for you to hear why they're sitting here and what got them here. They have an incredible story because they're incredible people. Welcome, Mike.
Welcome.
Lori.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, for real.
Yeah.
So before we turned on the camera, we were just kind of talking about the purpose, originally why I thought it was a great idea to have guests in the studio is if you go back far enough, a listener wouldn't have the opportunity, if they heard about the infinite banking concept, to really talk to other people. I mean, there's, of course, Nelson's books and maybe some radio ads from time to time promoting the infinite banking concept or something along those lines. But there was nothing where a listener could go online and hear other people that weren't in the financial services industry just share their experience with the infinite banking concept. So thank you for participating.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So tell us about yourself.
So
y'all, tell us about y'all.
Well, I don't know where to start. So we'll just kind of keep it with the realms of what we're talking about.
He's born on the other side of the tracks, and
we were we're West Coasties. Well, not really. Lori's a Phoenix girl, and I was born in the South Bay of San Francisco near Santa Clara, San Jose area, and we've traveled a bit. We've done a few things, been a few places, but we ended up in North Carolina. And one of the things that I would characterize one of the big things is trying to make some money, trying to save, trying to kind of sort of be really good stewards of what we've had. And we've done really well with some stuff. But one of the big things for me in looking into all this was the fact that, and we just talked about it, was the market, the 401k stuff, all this Wall Street stuff is, you kind of get forced down it. And it has let us down a couple times big. And, for years, I just kept looking, there's got to be a better thing, There's got to be a better place to put our money, because basically what you're doing is you're just trusting that some dude in Wall Street is looking out for you,
Yeah, right.
but no, he's looking out for him and his thing. And by default, you get part of it, maybe, So, they get your money coming in fees, and they get your money going out. It's not a win-win for the consumer, in my opinion, but they've got everybody convinced, and then I've had a job. I've been an airline pilot for all these years. And so I'm kind of sort of forced down that 401k hole.
Yeah.
Because, there's some DAX pennies, and we could argue that. But that's just what I knew. And so you participated and you did it, right? Is there something else? Is there something else, Always nagging at the back of my neck. There's something else, some other way to do this thing, right? So we get to North Carolina. We're doing business. We've got, we're doing some real estate. Lori's doing, she's a designer really by talent. And so we were doing some staging and lots of different things, and we've evolved to we're in North Carolina, and we've got these wedding venues that we own, and we're staying busy, and we're trying to grow the business because we want some financial freedom. But what happens is, once again, where are we putting all this money? Am I going to keep putting money into a vehicle that I can't get a hold of? Mm-hmm. Where do I get the money? How do I get it out? Can we use it? For years we used, we took loans out on our 401k all the time, mm-hmm. And we were kind of sort of advised that was a no-no, but we did it anyway because it made perfect sense, Mm-hmm. And who's to say whether we did well with it? I think we've done well with it. I could show you on a piece of paper that I believe we've done well with the decisions we've made, but still, it wasn't the real freedom that we needed with our money. So I started looking, and I remember I was looking on the internet, and I saw this thing about be your own banker. Okay, and I thought, be your own banker? How the heck is that going to happen? So
just has a nice ring to it.
It has a nice ring to it. It really did. And so I look, and it was one of these little, I don't know if it was like a click funnel thing, but I ordered the book, and I got the book. And I don't remember what it was. I remember it was Be Your Own Banker, and it had the picture of that vault on the front, And I read it, and I don't remember really what. All I remember first time I read it was that, hey, it's kind of a weird concept, and then you butt up against the whole thing about whole life insurance because you've been told all your life that term's the way to go, the Dave Ramsey stuff, right? And so. Anyway, so you go through that process and you read it, and I put the book down, and I was just joking with Julie back there. I said, hey, I don't know where that original book's probably in some thrift store somewhere, because it probably got thrown out or something, because I was like, okay, so I let it down, right? And so a year goes by. I remember it's about a year, and I started picking up that whole, all right, we got to figure something out with this money, because now we're getting to be successful in our business, and now I've got money. That's like I've got a lot of money in the checking account. I can't sit there. I can't have it in the bank somewhere, so what are we going to do with it? So I go back into looking at the stuff. I see it again. I see some guys talking about it on the internet, some other of the noisemakers out there. And then I order the book again and I read it. And while I'm reading it, somehow I get kind of filtered into you and what you're doing, and saw some of your videos, and it all kind of sort of came together, right? So I thought, okay, so it gave me, I read the book with a whole different set of eyes, right? Yeah. Okay, and so I read the book, and I came to a point because I'm getting ready to retire. The feds force us out at 65, and but Lori and I are.
You're barely 55. What
Dude,
do you mean?
we're young, man. We feel good. We feel energized. We're I can't imagine us not doing stuff, and not being not just being workers, but being really principal folks that are innovators, and we're the thinking part, and we're kind of leading these younger people that we've got into the future, So, anyways,
that's a doer in my book, and I didn't, if I can interject here, sure. I didn't really give the background. I mean, a pilot, 6 children. They have several wedding venues, and I mean, the latest was a winery. I can't wait to talk about that. And then real estate, so there's a lot there. I mean, doers, actually doers, salt of the earth people, like I said earlier. So I just want to interject that. I mean, they're doing it, right? They're doing it. Okay, sorry.
So I guess for the listeners and for everybody out there, one of the things, and I'm sure there's a lot of them out there that are in the same situation I was. We had term insurance that we bought 20 years ago, right? And I got a note. It's probably last year. Yeah. That hey, it's coming up due, right? It's it. 20 years is up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still remember when we went to the office and talked to that guy about that whole thing, So. So it made me feel old, but then it made me feel, oh my gosh, we got to do something here, because I never really thought about retirement. There's no retirement. For us, there's just what are you going to do next? Yeah. All right. We can't fly airplanes anymore, but we can run the venue. We can do the winery. There's so much out there that we're excited about and want to do, so I kind of sort of came to a situation where I had some problems I needed to solve, and one of the things was I needed to solve the life insurance problem, the death benefit problem, because, if something happens to me, I like to think I bring a lot of value to the organization, for the next 20 years, so what is that supposed to look like, right? Second thing is we've got this cash situation. I need to put this stuff somewhere. It ain't going in the bank.
That reminds me, and I have not looked at our notes, but I think the first time or two that we spoke, I mean, you said I have these issues that I want solved, and I wrote them down. So that when you said the life insurance and anyway, I remember that.
So life insurance, death benefit, cash savings somewhere to put it, right? So not just for a savings vehicle, but I need to use it. You know, it needs to go in, needs to come out, you know, trying to keep, and this, I don't want to sound bad, but just I need to keep the government and other people out of my stuff, you know? Just needs to be out. Okay, I need to do it on my own.
Sounds like Nirvana, not bad.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? And it needs to be a safe place.
Yeah.
Okay, it needs to be something safe. Okay, and of all the financial institutions, all the things that are out there, I don't think there's anything that can contribute to, especially the life insurance company that you set us up with. That nothing can contribute or nothing can beat the history and the track record that any of these people have. You know, they talk about these mutual funds that, it's been around 30 years, 20 years, they're making this and that percent. Yeah, well, this insurance company's been, you know, paying dividends and doing it for a lot longer than that. So maybe I need to go with a more stable individual or organization, you know, with where we're actually putting our future, you know. So we had those problems to solve, and the more I read about infinite banking, the more I read about whole life, the more I listened to you explain it, just from a realist standpoint. It absolutely made perfect sense. So
that's awesome. I appreciate that. You know, earlier when y'all had previously borrowed against your 401k, many times, and you were told that was a bad idea.
Yes.
Wonder who said that was a bad idea.
Well, you know, you call, well, I'm not going to say it, Fidelity. I can say that. You call those Fidelity dudes down there, and man, you've got to go through 3 guys. They hand you off. Yeah. And the third guy you talk to, I think, is like a boss, like a manager, who's, you know, and they make you say all these statements. Well, you know, the blah, 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 blah. You know, so you know that they don't agree with it, and you're taking money off their table.
Yeah.
They do not want to have to do that.
You know, Barry Dyke, as a friend of mine, he's been on several times, and he's an author and writes about, you know, Wall Street and a couple of books, The Pirates of Manhattan, Guaranteed Income. Mm-hmm. The guy's a researcher among researchers. And one of the last conversations that we had that was recorded, these companies, these custodians, you know, like Fidelity and all the rest of them, they have ratcheted up their game over the last few years when it comes time to move money away from them. I mean, there's a whole new ball game compared to 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, it's almost a dogfight trying to get your money out of there.
Well, and plus with all the baby boomers, you know, us getting out and wanting to get that money moving and doing something else. I mean, there's a whole lot of money sitting in there that they don't want touched. And behind us, I don't think there's a demographically, there's a big push for these guys to start saving and refilling their pockets. Yeah. You know, that's just me thinking, you know. So anyways.
Trillions. But then when you did borrow against your 401k, and you cannot borrow against a traditional IRA, you're limited. Yes. Right? 50% of the account value or $50,000.
Correct.
Right? Whichever is smaller. And then they tell you how you're going to pay it back and when and at what interest rate.
Right.
And then all the custodians are a little bit different. Even if you go to one particular, you know, like Fidelity, they probably manage Fidelity, Vanguard, State Street, TD
There's
Ameritrade.
Only a few of them, yeah.
Yeah. When they were bought, TD Ameritrade was bought by Schwab. The plan, they have maybe 5 different plan documents, right, for a particular company or a particular industry.
Sure.
And there's quite often a limitation on how many loans or how often you can take a loan. So if you take a loan, you get it repaid in 2 or 3 years. There may be a waiting period before you can get another loan. Did you experience any of that?
Yeah, and you really can't. You take the $50,000 out, you put it, because usually it was like, okay, we got a deal on a house that we're going to flip, right? Yeah. Which we ended up getting in. That's another story. So, but I get the money. We got $50,000 here. We just paid off the last loan. They won't let you take the money out for 6 months or something. I don't know. And then you get the money out, and then you go do your deal. And then there's some. They were pretty straightforward about what the interest rates were. It's kind of the sort of the standard thing.
Set.
You know, It's all set. You pay it off through the payroll deduction stuff, and next thing you know, 20 4 years later, it's paid off and you can do it again. But that's it. I mean, if you got a couple $300,000 in your 401k and you can only get a hold of $50,000 of it,
right?
Man, that's tough. And being employed, now there's some options if you're self-employed. You can go out and do those other, but there's still rules, and you gotta, everything's got to be inside the IRA and all. So it's like, it's too much. I want to be able to just get to it and do deals when I need to do them, do what I need to do, because things come up. Whether it's us buying the guy's 20 acres to the north of us because we need to get that. We've been trying for years and I don't have enough money, or it's that we need to spend this much money because we got to fix this road here, or something always comes up. You always need to capitalize. There's always something, especially with the scale that we're kind of getting into with, the money that goes through the business checking account all the time. There's always need $10,000, $15,000 for something, man, So, you can't do that with the traditional product. You just can't do it.
Did you go down the road of self-directed IRAs with real estate, the 1031 exchanges and then self-directed IRAs?
We never did the self-directed stuff, just because it just never fit with what we were doing, Mm-hmm. But we did 1031 stuff. So, we got to a point where we were in the residential rentals. We had 7 properties. It doesn't seem like a lot to those big real estate investors, but with a regular job, Lori's got 6 kids she's trying to raise. She gets all the credit for that. And, but the idea isn't that we were trying to be billionaires. The idea was that, we want to be in a position to where when we get ready to retire, or even before that, we got enough money to do what we need to do. I don't want to have to worry about money.
Yeah.
Anyways, but we did the housing thing, and then when we went towards the business thing, when we started the wedding venues, we started to shift everything from residential to more of a commercial thing. So we did a 1031 exchange. We bought an old Catholic church to the north of us. So we had the wedding venue at a barn venue that we lease right now from some friends of ours, right? So we built that property up, and then Lori's like, I want a different venue, So we started looking around at churches, right?
Yeah, yeah. And again, Mike said he was born and raised in California. I was raised in Arizona. And somebody turned us on to a historic Catholic church that was California mission style. And it was absolutely beautiful. But the Catholic church over the years had outgrown the property and built a bigger campus, and it was just falling into disrepair. And it was a half a city block. So we bought the convent, the rectory, the school, the sanctuary, the meeting hall, even the Boy Scout hut. So again, and we've restored every building. The final phase is going to be redoing the convent where the 12 nuns lived, and that is slated to be an Airbnb rental. And we've already done that with the priest house. And we have people not only that get married there that will book it out and stay overnight, but we have people coming into town there to have a child or a family member get married in the same general area, and they'll book it out. Our longest one was 5 nights. Wow. in the priest house. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we've been able to find a use for every building on the property.
So we've swapped from the residential to the commercial side of things. We got some other real estate, and so we did some 1031 exchange things, but we weren't really super sophisticated with trying to mess around with. It just seemed like all the government issued stuff just ended up at the same place.
Yep,
0.
You're piling up. You're deferring the taxes. I get it.
Oh yeah, and that's good. And a lot of guys, for a lot of guys, that's good. And even from an investment strategy, I think I sent you some stuff. There's some stuff that I'll get in arguments with my dad about because he's an equities guy. He's like, if you don't own Microsoft and Boeing, you're a fool, And I'm like, I've got a whole different idea of the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? So this is a big shift for me and all of that stuff. And what we're doing with you and with the life insurance is people are scared of it. People don't understand it. It's so outside the box for a lot of people, but man, it's really where freedom lives, especially if you're, in my opinion, a small business person,
I agree with that. You're of the age though, whenever when you first come across whole life insurance, in Nelson's book or however you first hear it, it's kind of repulsive, isn't it?
Well, it's repulsive not because you know anything about it or not. Right. It's because of what people told you.
Right.
I
mean, but we're at that age that
no. Yeah. I remember early on, when Lori was. Lori gives us a story. She was in Phoenix. She's the youngest of 5, right? And her oldest sister was. They had a rental house in Phoenix, right, somewhere, and they'd go, and I don't know if they went on vacation or did something, but they asked Lori to keep track of it, right? And she, what's the story?
So it was their primary residence in Phoenix, and I have a background in property management and everything. So when they moved to Houston, she said, we're going to rent out our house because the market is so bad right now and interest rates were so high. They just figured they'd keep it on as a rental for a while. So I said, no problem at all. I'll go ahead and get it listed. Well, she got impatient and found a renter and didn't do proper background checks or anything. So, of course, 30 days or so in, get notification that all of their checks have bounced. So try to approach them for collections. They ended up getting a restraining order so that we couldn't approach the house and everything. So, of course, they worked the system. They knew exactly how long they could stay. And 2 days before the sheriff would have been knocking on the door, they disappeared, but they trashed the whole property in the meantime. So I don't know where you were going with that story.
Lori said, where we were tracking.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Well, what'd you tell me?
So when Mike first proposed, again, was huge in property management, worked out of California and Arizona. And he said, wanted to get a rental home. And I was like, oh, no, we're not going down that path. I know where that lands.
But I was thinking, I've got the perfect person for it. She's been around this stuff. She knows how to market it and sell it and fix it up and make it right, And I talked her into doing the first one, but I don't know where we're going with that whole thing. But that's kind of sort of where we started with the banking concept, with Nelson Nash reading his book and getting our feet wet with it and trying to just flesh out as much. Because it's just one fail after the other with the traditional stuff, And how do you do business right? How can you build a small cash flow machine? I'm not even going to say net worth because net worth means nothing. What's important to me is cash flow. Yeah. Right. I could have $1 million. Like my dad, he's got a bunch of money, right? And he could have a lot more cash flow, but he's happy with it sitting there. Yeah. All of it. I'm drooling going, just loan it to me. I don't want to pay the tax. I'll pay the taxes. Let's make this stuff move, But it's an indication of his generation too.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, they want that savings there, Yep. And that's good. It's his thing. It's fine. It's great. But for me, I can't put money aside and wait till I'm 70. What? I need to use it now, So how do we do that? How do you can't, the 401k will not allow you to do that. It's IRAs, and then they say, oh, you can do IRAs and do, putting $7,000 a year in an account.
Yeah.
We're not big fish by any means, okay? But I run that through my checking account in 2 weeks. Yeah. In business, with stuff,
It's going to take a long time.
It's going to take a long time, So there's a different thing, Even life insurance at some level, there's limitations to the whole thing,
Absolutely.
All right, so that's why you talk about, insuring your kids and all these other things, So there's, as we grow the business, that's, we'll talk about that, but that's the next avenue, adding more places to utilize and build the bank, So,
well, I was, it just when you said earlier, some of the things that triggered my memory on checking the boxes on the early conversation. If I can, it was your life insurance. The term had an end date that was coming up. Mm-hmm. You had more cash than you were comfortable with just in the bank setting. Safety was a big deal because there's enough there's an adequate amount of risk inherent with the equities, right?
Correct.
But then you're in business and you're doing a lot of things, so there had to be some access to it.
Correct.
To not impede what y'all are doing and had laid out and continue to do. And then legacy was a big deal.
Yes.
Right. Well, with 6 children, of course, I think the more children you have, maybe, and the older that we get, the more legacy becomes important.
Yeah.
And so how long have y'all been doing this?
So Lori's policy was a year.
1 year.
I literally, like 2 weeks ago, just pulled some money out of the checking accounts, got yelled at for doing it before talking to her. But no,
those things happen, right?
I thought we had the conversation, but I guess not.
Y'all had it in your own mind?
We
thought it through.
Listen, we're in an office about half this size, and we got desks, kind of sort of the 4 of us, and I remember asking her about it, but maybe that was a conversation in my own head. But anyways, we paid her premiums and all that down. We took a loan out right away. And we'll talk about that. And then my policy is coming up, February, I think? Something like that.
I should know. I can walk in the other room.
No. I looked at it. I looked at it the other day. But anyways, this is small details. When Christmas slows down, that's when I'll go through and look at all this stuff. But so I'll have to get the premium in there, and that'll be a year for me. And then when we first took the policies out, the time it was interesting because we started. The conversation started in maybe November, end of October. Yeah, that's what it was. It was like November, beginning of November. I talked to Julie. She ran me through the process, and it was fun. She was nice and asking the questions and doing her thing. And then you were busy, so we talked like first week of December. Had to sit down. I'll never forget. I was in the commercial kitchen at the church property, and you called and we were talking, and I had my notes in my pocket. I need to solve for these problems, right? And that was it,
You were pretty adamant. I mean, I
was ready to go. Yeah, you didn't have to sell me on anything or do anything. I just wanted to kind of sort of know the details because the details were going to be important for lack of a better way to say it, selling it to Lori, right? Okay, so anyhow, so we established the policies, and in concurrent to that whole thing, we had another opportunity that came up, or we've been looking for an opportunity. So we had started the business originally, and we got a 40-acre property, and we had a barn that we built. This beautiful, we call it a farm, but it's more of a resort. It looks like, it's more of a ranch kind of sort of thing, Big pine trees and oak trees and things like that. It's beautiful. We started the wedding business there. It grew. We moved it off-site to another barn venue, which has become very successful. One of the top venues in the Charlotte area. It's called the 1932 Barn. Shameless plug there.
No problem.
Anyway,
we'll put a link in the notes. I mean, people travel. You've got Airbnb,
and most of our anyways, we'll talk about that for a second.
Okay.
So then we got that. Then we started growing. It's a seasonal thing out there because it's not air conditioned historic barn, so we can only do spring and fall. So we wanted to kind of round it out a little bit. So we found this Catholic church property up in Salisbury, North Carolina, and so we got into that. And it's like, can you buy a Catholic church? It's like, that's
Turns
weird.
out you can.
Turns out you can, right? How does that work? And so we grinded through the process and turned that thing around, and then kind of sort of got that running a little bit. And so I'm always out the gate, right? As soon as stuff kind of sort of the dust settles a little bit, I'm already looking for other opportunity things, right? So one of the things we really wanted to do is think about, so how do we round out this business? There was a possibility that our daughter was coming back from Switzerland with her husband. They're in their late 20s at the time, and they were really interested in being part of the growth structure for what we're doing because they want to take this thing over. So we've got an opportunity to create a generational path for these guys.
That's awesome.
So we looked at the Catholic Church thing. We purchased it. We did a 1031 exchange. We dumped all of our rental properties except for one. But the beauty of it is we sold I think we sold all the rental properties to the current renters.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to do any inspections. We didn't have to, I didn't even go through real estate agents. We just had my attorney.
Wow.
We wrote up the contracts and we just flipped them out and we moved the money into the church property. Right. So that was great. And then so we've been looking at wineries and vineyards, as a concept, what would that really look like? So we went, what was it?
I am going to jump in to say Mike and I know nothing about winemaking or wine growing, but I just thought, again, with the wedding business being my main focus, we had the barn venue, then we got the church venue. What would round that out? What would be the trifecta? Let's get a vineyard, right? Because those are three just really dynamic places that couples are drawn to for a wedding. And so, it took a couple of years and we looked around and then Mike found the perfect fit for us.
So we were sitting there. We had gone up to Asheville, North Carolina is about 2 hours from us, right? So we're kind of north of the Charlotte area, out in the country. And so we went and looked at a vineyard out there. It was for sale, looked at it. I thought the place was perfect, but we couldn't get around the fact that it was kind of beat. It was right up our alley. It's been neglected, didn't have really a vision. It would have been a great spot, but how the heck am I going to run a business? And her and I run a business that's 2 hours away from everything else.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? Nah. So we thought about it. We were kind of excited about it. So we went up again and got some of the wine, brought it down. And I think it was like a Friday we went up there. And then we came Saturday morning. We were having lunch and Lori said, let's open up that bottle of wine. So we opened up that bottle of wine from them and she tasted it. It was bad.
It had turned.
It was vinegary, right? So it's like, oh my gosh. So now it was like, oh, is all his wine like this? It's just a random bottle. So it just pretty much put the kibosh on the whole thing there. Yeah. So I was sad and I just let it go, right? So we sat and just let it go for about a year, right? And then it was the same kind of thing on Saturday. I get up, nothing going on Saturday, and I'm looking on the internet at a certain website that we go to, and there's a commercial property up there, and there's like 3 or 4 wineries for sale in the area. What? So we look, and there's one right up the road from us, right? Okay, so let's go check it out. You want to check it out? She's like, yeah, let's go check it out. So I called the realtor, and he couldn't meet us there, right? But his gal, remember the gal? One of his partners, I guess. She was in the area, so she met us down there. So we went there at, I don't remember what it was, afternoon. And she showed us around, and we drove onto the property. And I know Lori and I were like, oh my gosh, this is perfect, keep the poker face, right? So we cruise all around there, and I'm just thinking, yeah, this is fabulous. It needs a lot, but it's just like the fabulous thing, So, we discussed it a little bit.
Yeah, it was a given.
But it was a done deal. Yeah. We knew right away that this was going to be it, right? Because, we both know what our pieces of the puzzle are, and it would just fit perfectly, And here's the interesting part of it. We've got our place that we live at on the property. You go south of us into the kind of more of the outside Charlotte metro area to the 1932 barn. It's 19 miles. You leave our house and you go north to the Abbey in Salisbury, 19 miles. You go out east of us, out Highway 73 to Uwharrie Vineyards, 19 miles.
Wow.
I know, right? Accidents don't happen, right, James?
That's crazy.
Anyway, so that's where we're at. So it was perfect in every way. And so that's kind of sort of where we're at. So where I go back to the life insurance thing is, after you and I set all this stuff up, we had some cash value in there. I think I pushed the premiums a little bit. It was, I don't know, at least for us, it was where it needed to be. And we had enough cash value in there that we literally saw the property, like in April, something like that, right? Beginning of April?
Yep.
Something like that. Put it under contract, got the deal going, and that's another conversation point.
That's incredible. I mean, I had no idea I didn't know that y'all had been interested in Vineyards previously, I just remember getting a phone call and say, "Hey, you know anything about wineries?" And I'm like, "No." And
I call you.
Us either. But we want to buy one.
Anyways, okay, so.
But the deal, but let me say that I have some clients that have wineries, and the deal. Will you be able to share with us the deal?
Yeah, I can share the deal with you. So anyway, so we make the whole thing, kind of put the whole thing together, and right away, the cash value went into. So I had to put together. I hate throwing numbers around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
had to put together $400,000, right? Okay. So how do you get together $400,000? Well, you find $40,000 10 places, right? Okay, so some from this checking account, some from this, a bunch from life insurance, right? From the cash value, we had I forget whatever we had, but we got it all together.
Yeah, y'all been doing it for years before. I mean, y'all look, 6 children, pilot, real estate, event venues. This is number 3, the winery. It's like.
So we had an opportunity to use it right away, and it was exciting for me, and it was an easy process. I know you talk a lot about that. It was nothing. It was a couple phone calls, and Cindy maybe was the one that kind of worked me through it.
Yeah.
And so, she said, "Oh, okay. So you just do this." I had some paper. I messed up the paperwork, I think, the first time. So she called me a little exasperated and said, "Okay, Mike, hang on a second. You got to do it like this. Give me so, but we did it like on a Wednesday. I remember I was somewhere. I was somewhere on a layover somewhere, and I was on the phone, and we did it on like a Tuesday or Wednesday, and the money was in the account like Thursday night.
Wow. It doesn't always happen that fast, but when it does, it's nice.
So, I mean, I didn't need it that quick, but it was like, oh, surprised that it was there already. So it was great. So we started putting a little pile together to take, so we could take down to the, to the closing. Anyways, so it was great to be able to use that on the front end.
That's pretty good. I mean, you were exposed to the idea about a year prior, is that right? And threw the book away, read it one time or whatever.
Yeah, year, something like that. Year or two, a couple of years before we talked. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not 3 years into it or 2.5 years into it from the first exposure to actually going through underwriting, getting policies in force, and then actually collateralizing a policy to do another deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
so it worked, and it was there, and I needed to use it. So that's what we did, and it's been great. And I still have the 401k money. I've got a plan on sort of, that's really going to be funded. That's what's buying the winery. But I got a great deal to stretch that out so that I can keep doing what I'm doing in my brokerage account to fund this whole process.
Yep. Because
we're at a point now in our business where we need to make sure that everything's funding its own entity. This venue needs to fund its own operation. So we want to, and what's interesting about it too is that as we talked about this part of with the money part of it, it had kind of sort of forced me down the whole, because that whole, I don't know what you call it on the internet, but that whole thinking process leads you down other avenues too. Legal, entity protection. There's all kinds of stuff out there that's outside the box that most people don't see or know. And so not only did it affect me from a financial situation in my thinking, it really helped me look at some other things from legal standpoints too, because there's another guy out there that I really love that's like all about helping small businesses. And these guys I think were great. And I've been actually using these guys. They're not even local guys in North Carolina. And I use those guys because they're great. They're like you guys, they're on the phone, they answer. We've put together good asset protection plans, tax strategies. They're advantageous to what we're doing. And then we got a great accountant. That's another thing. You need to make sure if you're doing your own taxes, stop. Find somebody who's really going to help you think outside the box. Because if they're an accountant and they're kind of a big office, they see a lot of stuff that you're not going to see, and a lot of strategies. They'll know the stuff right away. It's worth paying them a few $100 every year to handle, handle that stuff, just some peace of mind, So anyway, I wanted to kind of give that too to some of your listeners, because when there's a lot of after effects to listening to different concepts, getting outside some of the crazy noise that's out there in the conventional world,
That's where success is, outside the box, in my opinion. Because you're not dependent upon me, you're not dependent upon a life insurance company, you're not even dependent upon that other organization doing your taxes. You're dependent on yourselves and what y'all are doing. The 401k, I'm not going to disparage, investments of any kind. There's a place for everything, but
sure.
It's not an apples to apples comparison whenever you look at what y'all put together as far as businesses and all of that experience and all of the results of your activities, and compare that with the stock market. To me, there's no comparison.
Well, there isn't. So like I have the church property we purchased from a local bank. It's all small bank, local bank. And they're good folks, and they kind of took a risk on us, but I don't know. We show them what we've done in the past. I've gotten a lot of money by just showing them what we've done.
Yeah.
And they look at us and okay, and so I'm not trying to oversell myself or anything. It's just like if I say we do that, I'm gonna perform on it, So anyways, he had me, every year he has me send a personal financial statement, because it's one of those loans that they don't sell. He keeps it on his books because I guess, and there's experts out there, but for the most part, I think some of these small banks, they got to keep a certain amount of these loans on their portfolio. All right. There's some rules for it, I guess. Right. And so our loan for the church property is on his portfolio because it's a good performing loan, and that makes him look good. It's a good property. Right. Because if something happens, that property is worth a lot more than what they got into it.
Yep.
Okay, because I've sunk a lot of cash into that whole fixing roofs and this and that. Anyways, he sends me a personal financial statement, or he wants one. Tax returns, just so he can kind of sort of just do his audit every year. And I did, I remember I had my first personal financial statement I ever sent him, and our net worth was this, maybe about 6 years ago. Okay. I just did this, thinking through it and looking through numbers and just doing conservative property values and this and this and this and this. That's what my net worth is right now.
Wow.
Okay.
It's about an 8 times increase.
All right. And that isn't because of Wall Street. Mm-mm. That isn't because of anything. It was because I went outside the box and did some things that most people would go, "Oh, you're crazy," right?
That's exactly my point. That's not due to the infinite banking concept. That's not due to any consultants or advisors that you have. It's not due to the little bank. I mean, not that they didn't play a role.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
You need to be surrounded, in my opinion, of people who are smart, in whatever area that you need their services in and their input. That's because of y'all. And that's where the solution is, in my opinion, is, it's what you do, how you think and how you apply.
Right.
Because if you don't think it and you don't take the risk, you don't make the effort, you don't bring up the conversation, you don't dig into the details of whatever it is, houses, churches, wineries, it's not going to happen. I mean, that's impressive, sir. 8 times increase. And what was the time period on that?
Probably 7 years.
7 years.
But it's also the 25 years of build up until then.
No question.
To build up the I don't know, our headspace.
Well, the knowledge base and I just think the track record, in owning properties and selling them and just being really responsible stewards.
Yep.
Of every aspect of our finances. People are willing to take a risk with us. And so I think as we've grown, people have been more and more comfortable with partnering with us to do rather unusual things. Like I said, don't know how to grow grapes, don't know how to make wine. Guess what? Mike's on his way. I mean, he's been taking courses and meeting with people all over North Carolina to learn all about the best way to, grow grapes. And our son-in-law is fully partnered in all of that. And our daughter's our marketing guru and is helping with the wedding business as well. So, I mean, we've really got a great team, but, we're taking a risk on things that we feel that personally is a good risk and something that, although we might not have foreknowledge, we have the ability to gain the knowledge to be succelful in the enterprise.
I listened years ago. I was listening to an interview with General Electric Jack Welch.
Oh yeah.
He kind of sort of went in there and saved that place and built it up.
I didn't know that.
And anyways, he did a talk, and it came down to this: you were making deals and kind of sort of figuring out, should we do it, should we not, should we pull the trigger? He kind of sort of had a thing in there, and I remember he said, if 70% of it, do it. He said, you can figure out the other 30%, So I thought, all right, 70% rule, and it works with everything. It's like whatever we do, it's funny. It's like we get into a job, and by the time you get into it, 70%, enough, and then the 30%, you can get knocked out easy because you've learned a lot from that first 70%, if you kind of sort of think if I got 7 of these pieces on this table, I know I can find the other 3 pieces, so that's kind of sort of where the risk has been too, risk reward. But I don't know, all the years, we know each other's skills and talents, so.
It's like 25-year overnight success. Huh.
And then, and then I also had one, and I'll add this to this whole conversation. You got to surround yourself by the right people too. Okay. I have a brother-in-law, Scott, right? And this guy, in my opinion, he was just super smart guy, too smart for his own good, right? Business guy, self-made guy, he's done well. And I'd always show up at the house for holidays or whatever, and he's always working. He's in the office or doing something, and he'd always say, "So what are you up to these days, Mike?" "Well, we're thinking about buying this house or doing this." And he'll go, "Really? So tell me about it." "Well, you should do this. You should go in there and knock on his door and put a dead chicken on his thing and write a note and say, hey, do that. Just weird stuff. It's like, just like, what? No. Don't think about make him talk to the guy. Figure out what the motivation is. Go in there, do something different, and try some different things. So I always had in the back of my mind, what would Scott do? Well, I don't know if I want to talk to him, or I don't know. I don't want to embarrass myself or what, but you need to surround yourself with some idea people too, and some people who are willing to think differently. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing, It's a hard thing to do.
It is. It's a hard thing to unlearn what you've learned.
Yeah.
And really, and it's been my experience, Nelson, you say it all the time, it's much easier, it's harder to unlearn than it is to learn, and we get surrounded in the narrative and the noise. I call it noise. And, if you don't have the ability to think through that, I'm not saying it could just be difficult. It could keep you from finding out the truth.
So it pushed me down the road of wanting to do things a little bit differently and think outside the box. The first time I did that was Meridian Street. So we bought. Rumor was that we're going to build this light rail from Charlotte up to Davidson, right? Cornelius, this area up there is nice by the lake, high end, nice, all this stuff. So I bought this couple of rental houses down kind of near that area there. Perfect area to put up some apartments or do something with down the road, right? So we bought this thing and bought the one house from a guy. And then the house next door was for sale, and it would have given me a big piece of ground down there to do something with, right? That was the plan. And it wasn't for sale, right? But when it wasn't a nice area, you know? So I found out who the owner was. I learned all that stuff about, you know, finding out who owns what and does their thing, and actually found the number and called him up on the phone. You know, I said, hey, this is so-and-so. He's like, yeah, you know. I said, you've got that property down there on so-and-so street. Yeah. I said, are you interested in buying it? I just bought the place next door, and I want to kind of sort of clean it up down there, but I need this piece of ground here. Are you interested? He goes, well, what do you got? I said, well, if you're interested to play, give me your address, your email address. I'll send you something. He said, okay. So sent me an email address, and I think we talked about it. Maybe we didn't. I don't know. but I put some,
trust me, at some point we did.
But I put something together, because at the end of the day, you know, if you're using the money from the bank, you know, to do some of these small deals, she's got to sign it, you know.
Sure.
So just got to get her involved in it, you know, and she's just shaking her head, I'm sure, going, Mike, what are you doing, you know? But there's a bigger plan, you know. So anyways, I took a risk and called this guy up, you know, and said, hey, you know, are you interested in doing it? I put something together, and I threw the numbers on the table, what I thought was a good thing for me, and what I thought maybe be a good, because you don't want to throw the guy a poop sandwich, you know. That's not right, you know. It's just not nice, you know. I don't want to be that kind of business guy. So I threw him a good deal, and he sent me back a note or called me or something and said, yeah, let's do that, you know. And the first thing is, oh my gosh, I should have offered him less.
Yeah, sure.
But no. You can't go that way with all this stuff, you know. It's like, you know, he found some value in it, and I sent him the deal because this is what I saw the value of. So it was a win-win play. Did it, and we kept those things going for a while. Nothing ever happened to it, and I don't know if it's by divine providence or something. You know, I was at Home Depot or Lowe's, frustrated. I was at the pro desk there talking to the guys, and there was another guy standing there, and I was talking to the guy that I know, and I said, hey, I forget what I was buying, and the guy next to me looked at me and goes, you got rental properties? Where are they at? I said, well, I got down on Meridian Street. They head down here, you know, we've got these 3 properties, and it's, you know, whatever. He says, really? He goes, can I take a look at it? He goes, are they for sale? I said, everything's for sale. So he came down there, and literally that afternoon, those 3 properties, I sold it to whoever his investor gal was. And like 3 weeks later, it was done and gone, off my portfolio, off the worry list.
Wow.
You know, and so, and I think we probably did well, you know.
Oh yeah.
On it, you know, I definitely got my money back plus, you know, so, you know, we made a little money off it, got a little headspace on it, but it was my first introduction to trying to really throw some stuff out there and really talk mano a mano about money, and talking to some, you know, here's what I'm offering you, you know, and not going through the normal channels of, like, you know, a real estate agent, you know, stuff like that. So that's kind of sort of where my start came to trying to talk to people and make deals, you know, or trying to.
If you don't mind, would you, because I love that, would you tell us about the deal on the winery?
Yeah. So I'm excited about it because it started out as an interesting play on how am I going to come up with some money, right? But one of the big things was they had mentioned in the ad owner financing available, right? So obviously it means they're motivated, right? Well, why are they motivated? You know, so you go down there and you look and you kind of analyze things as best you can. And the real estate guy who had the listing was super nice guy, right? He wanted to get it sold. He know that these folks were in a position where they really needed to do something with this thing, right? Because it was in some disrepair with some things. And it was at a point where if you go too much longer, some of the stuff would be a little unsalvageable, right? You know, and I know they had guys that came in there and offered them cash money. And I know there was people that were going in there wanting to take the space and use it for something else. And the neighbors out there, it's out in the country, you know, And there's a few neighbors out there that were like, oh, so are they going to build houses out here? Are they going to, build a big restaurant or something? Are they going to, tear all the vines down and do liquor out there? Or who knows what they're going to do, but they had all these things going on out there. And there was a little bit of a caveat there because the owners had passed on, and the kids were then they're our age kids. I say they're our age, and they already got stuff going on, and they're just wanting to, in our opinion, trying to just find the right buyer for it, But I think there was a little bit of a desire to keep it in a winery, because that was the dad and the mom's dream out there, So, anyways, so we go in there and look at the property, and I start throwing some numbers together, and I think I landed on what I thought the property was worth. Okay, it's worth what you're willing to pay for it. And I know a little bit about what ground is going for out there, and it's 70 acres. It's a big piece of ground. It's only about a quarter of it, not even that much.
As far as
12% of it, 10% of it's in vines. It's not a lot, but it's not a small place. It's got a big commercial building on it. It's got all these things going on in there, all the equipment it needs. But it needed a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease, maybe years in the vineyard to get it up to shape, right? And we've since then found out a few things that are going to cost us a little bit more, but it's okay. So I kind of sort of thought about the deal, and I thought, how are we going to make this thing happen? What's going to be good for them and what they can get out of it, and what's going to be good for us, where I need to be, to make this whole thing happen, okay? Because at the end of the day, I ran the numbers and I showed Lori. I said, listen, if we take the money out of here, if I cash out the 401k, pay the taxes, if we pull all the money out of all our credit cards and all this kind of stuff, I can come up with the money for it, right?
So this episode went long because we were having fun. So we're going to end it here and going to pick it up from here on part 2. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.